So literally right after I published my Cyberpunk 2077 video today, CD Projekt announced the release and preload times for Cyberpunk 2077. And actually, there are some surprising announcements and reveals on this. Some of you can download the game right now, some of you will be playing later than the rest of us. And depending on your location, this could actually have a fairly large impact. If you missed my other video, I go over a ton of the leaked copies and leaked details as a result from those leaked copies and what's going on with all of that. I'll have it linked in the description or in the eye, but otherwise, when can you play Cyberpunk 2077? So CD Projekt released another image with a yellow background. I feel like at this point it's got to be an internal meme at their studio. And although at first glance it seems very typical and simple, the global release time for the game overall across the entire world, in reality there's a few interesting tidbits here. And I would argue for most of you, the time you're seeing on this map, particularly for the US, because that's where most of my audience is, isn't actually when you could play. So right after that, as far as the release times go, they're going to vary on consoles versus on PC. And the vast majority of this map is representing the PC release time, and also Stadia, but I imagine that's a very small subset of players. But if you are playing on a console, regardless of an Xbox or a PlayStation, the release time is going to be midnight local time. So based on this information, let's say you live in New York like I do, for PC, I can play at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but if I had an Xbox, I wouldn't actually be able to play until 5 hours later at midnight Eastern time on the 9th. They're kind of turning over into the 10th. Now, it's not totally clear how this will work for Pacific time on the west coast of the United States, as this is where it could become a huge issue. Technically, CD Projekt describes here local time, which local time would mean 8 hours after the PC universal launch time, but rather the vast majority of the time with US launches of games, it uses midnight Eastern time universally. And of course, specifically, that's for the United States. The rest of the world will have their own local release times, but oftentimes for the US across the entire country, it uses midnight Eastern time. So most often you could play at 9 p.m. Pacific time because that's midnight Eastern time. We technically don't know, there's no official confirmation of that, and even if you look at the Xbox and PlayStation store, technically does list a drop time of 7 p.m. Eastern time still, even though right now it seems like the drop time should be 12 a.m. Eastern time. Now for PlayStation users, this is probably just going to be a bit of a bummer, but if you are an Xbox user, there is a fairly easy workaround. On the console, you could literally just set your location to Australia, and then you'll likely be able to play even a bit earlier, perhaps even when it's dropping on PC. So though we technically don't have confirmation of this, and it really is a workaround, so it's not going to get confirmation, if you're on Xbox, I wouldn't sweat this. You'll probably be able to play earlier. You probably won't have to wait until midnight properly. If you're on PlayStation, you might be waiting a bit though. You probably going to want to stay off social media because a lot of people are going to be playing this game. Everyday people on PC will have access hours before you. And then conversely, when it comes to some of the preloads for Cyberpunk 2077, Xbox here also definitely gets a clear edge, as you could actually download the game right now on Xbox. It seems like just after this announcement was made, the preload opened up for many people and images started popping up online of people downloading this. On the PlayStation side though, unfortunately, the preload time isn't exactly known. It just says 2 days prior to the release date, which isn't a ton of time, especially if it's considering the 10th as the release date. So you can only start preloading on the 8th, and then some of you will be able to play on the 9th. I don't know why for the PlayStation side an explicit time wasn't given, but for Stadia as well as PC, you could actually start preloading on December 7th. The preload will be up this Monday, and the preload time will vary depending if you bought it on GOG or on Steam and the Epic Store. For GOG users, the preload will be up at 6 a.m. Eastern time, and for the Epic Store as well as Steam, the preload will be up at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So you'll have a few days to be able to preload the game on PC. There's unfortunately, due to this late timing, especially with PlayStation, going to be some of you that probably can't get the game downloaded fast enough because you don't have super fast internet in your area. And of course, many will still have to face the day one patch. We don't know the exact size of this, but it looks like some reviewers or people just to get the game early have right now around a 44 gigabyte download. This reportedly not the day one patch. It seems like it's just a patch. And I wouldn't be shocked if this is comparable to the size of the day one patch in general. So on day one, you may have another 40 gigabytes to deal with after the original 70 gigabyte download. It is honestly pretty interesting to see this huge discrepancy, 2 days on PlayStation versus 7 days on Xbox. But hopefully this all makes it a bit clearer for you when exactly you could play and when exactly you could download this. As always, I hope you guys found this video informative. If you want to check out my first video today, it'll be linked in the description or at the end of this one. But until next time, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all later.